turn to Senator Roberts, my partner on the Agriculture Committee. Senator Roberts.
Madam Chairwoman, I appreciate your calling this hearing today. CFTC oversight is a critically important function of this committee, and I'm looking forward to hearing from our witnesses today with regard to the implementation of the Dodd-Frank Act, especially since we are only a month away from the Act's effective date. Roughly 11 months ago, the more than 800-page Dodd-Frank bill was passed and began the process of what appears to be a re-engineering of our financial markets. What has followed has been 385 new rules and thousands of pages of new regulations which cover areas, I think, well beyond the scope of the financial crisis or the Dodd-Frank legislation. 51 of the new rules are proposed by the CFTC's 31 different rulemaking teams that are still in operation, I'm sure. I fear some may suffer a classic case of the cure for government regulations is more government regulation. I'm curious to know whether these additional government regulations will actually fix the mess created by non-market forces in the housing market, and if any in-depth cost-benefit analysis of some of these rules has been done. That, by the way, was ordered by the President in his executive order of January 18. I am concerned with yet another agency putting out a litany of regulations that will raise transaction costs, stifle legitimate economic activity, increase unemployment, and create new risks and uncertainty where it didn't exist before. Some of these regulations re-engineer the principles-based risk management of future markets that did not cause the financial crisis and that have operated well for decades. Madam Chairwoman, raising compliance costs and stifling the ability to actually manage the risks in today's global marketplace are not the objectives of this committee, and I don't believe of this administration as well. I have a real concern that choking off innovation and risk management by increasing the cost of entering into a swap transaction at a time when U.S. firms are struggling to compete globally may cause U.S. firms to seek distant shores for relief. I'm worried that the Fed, SEC, and CFTC have spent too much time in their own respecting foxholes, not really coordinating the overall regulatory impact of this act. And I'm particularly concerned, as the Chairwoman and I have expressed in recent letter to our European counterparts, that our regulatory process is headed for trouble internationally. Here are just a couple of the pieces I'm interested in exploring today. Senators Lugar, Chambliss, and I, all three former chairmen of this committee and a committee in the House, sent a letter concern that the Dodd-Frank Act creates a black hole when it comes to regulating swaps and transactions after July 16 of this year, sort of a swaps purgatory, if you will. What happens next? I am expecting Chairman Gensler will fill us in on the committee's actions today. For members' own edification, the chairman and the SCFTC has made the top page of the Wall Street Journal above the fold. So congratulations at least on, honing in on that. Come to think of it, we could probably read this and not have the hearing, but then that's not what we're going to do. Secondly, I have here an unusual letter from the Financial Services Agency of Japan asking why U.S. regulations would apply to Japanese financial institutions operating in Japan, and I think that's a fair question. They did not say domo arigato. They said wakitamasen, meaning I don't know what's going on. My third question today has me wondering why fundamental and commonly used methods of hedging on futures markets, not swaps, but wheat and corn futures markets, which have been in operation for decades, without incident, had absolutely nothing to do with the financial crisis, would suddenly be considered speculation by one of the rules that is proposed by the CFTC. More on that later. In closing, I would simply suggest that instead of looking back over the past year at this hearing today, we should be examining the overall effect of all of these new regulations on our economy and globally over the next 10 years. I thank you.
Thank you very much.